Hi all, Heber here. So today I thought I would have a little bit of a look at one of the best, if not the best, role-playing game out there, and it is Divinity Original Sin Enhanced Edition, and you can get it on Xbox and PlayStation and PC, pretty much everywhere. The reason I picked this game is because Diablo 4 is in beta at the moment, and it will be rolling out in the next 3 months, and it made me think, what is actually the best role-playing game out there? And I know role-playing games is a really big genre, and you have lots of different games like Skyrim, Divinity, Diablo. I mean, they're all different, but they're all role-playing games. And I thought, let's have a look at what I think is the best role-playing game out there, and it still is the best role-playing game out there, and it's quite an achievement because Divinity Original Sin this year is actually almost 10 years old. I mean, that's quite an achievement. And Divinity Original Sin came out around 5 years ago, and although it does top the first game in some areas, I think overall Divinity Original Sin, the first game from 2014, is still the best of the two, and it is by far the best role-playing game that you can purchase on pretty much any platform. So why is Divinity Original Sin such a great game? And I'll show you why in this video here, but one of the first things I want to just underline immediately here is that the game has probably the best implementation of couch co-op or local multiplayer, whatever you want to call it, split screen, many names for the same thing. It has probably the best implementation of this game mechanic in any game in the world, and that's already a bold statement, but if that's not enough, then Divinity is a very complex game. So many mechanics, so many things you can do, so many ways you can potentially break the game, although it doesn't happen very often. And once you mix such a complicated game up with having two players doing the same things at the same time in the same world, I mean, it just makes the achievement even more astonishing, really. I mean, Diablo 3 couldn't even get normal split screen done correctly because only one person can access the inventory at a time. That's ridiculous. In Divinity, the inventory is so much more complicated, and there's so many more things you can do. And in this game, both players can not only access the inventory at the same time without any problems at all. Each player can actually do their complete own thing in the same game at any time. One player can be involved in a turn-based battle, while the other player is, somewhere on the other side of the map trying to sell some stuff in a real-time situation. I mean, it's an amazing achievement, and I don't think it gets enough accolades out there because I really don't know how Larian, the developer, actually pulled this off, but it is quite amazing, to be honest. Alright, getting on to the actual meat of the game here, and Divinity, you can play it as, like I said before, multiplayer with 1, 2, whatever amount of players. You can even play it online as well if you don't want to share your couch. And the game is actually made that in such a way that you will bring like a little bunch of warriors through the whole game, and you will upgrade and nurture them each separately. And in the end, you will have this fantastic fighting force of 2, 3, 4, whatever protagonists that you are guiding through the game world, and you are, doing these very sophisticated battles using. And it all starts in the character creation, and of course we're just gonna go through it very quickly here because it's also really good. I mean, it's there's nothing in this game that's just done quickly or easily or yada. Someone didn't really have time to do it, so they just did it quickly. And building your character, super important. This game here does no hand holding whatsoever. I remember when I started playing the game, I didn't know what to do, and it took me a few days to figure out how the game actually works. and you will need to read some stuff online to actually, get a hold of the details here, because there's a lot of details, and every detail is very important in this game here. If you don't build your character in, at least a slightly sane way here in the beginning, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, especially in the latter parts of the game. Of course, you can respec, but it's better just to, get things right from the beginning. And now, one thing that's very different in, Divinity is the whole point system here. Although important, it's really not that important, because you don't get a whole lot of skill points to distribute in this game, not compared to Diablo or anything like that. This game here is more about what you choose to specialize in, really. That's more like it. So specializing in abilities, that's what Divinity is all about, and that's what makes this game here so much fun. And it's also different from most other role-playing games in the fact that if you want to take one skill from level 1 to level 2, you don't need 1 skill point, you actually need 2 skill points. And if you want to take a level, like a skill from 2 to 3, you're going to need 3 skill points. So it means that every time you up a ability by 1 level, you are investing a heavy amount of skill points into that ability. So that's why it's just so important that you get it right, and that you have a bit of a plan with your build. If you just go about nilly-willy putting points into everything, you'll still be able to play the game, of course, but you're gonna have a much tougher time doing it. So I don't recommend doing that. I recommend putting in some research before you actually start playing. And there's so many abilities you can actually, put your points into and study, like bow, crossbow, dual wielding, single hand, two-handed wand, and all sorts of defense. And then we get down to the actual skills down here, and this is what is pretty much the core of the game, because these are different like magics, like fire, freezing, wind, and whatever. There's water as well, and then there's different melee combat, and sneaky stuff, and witchcraft, and of course ranged combat as well. And you cannot specialize in all of these. You can specialize in 1, perhaps 2, if you are if you're really thinking about your build, but you have to be careful. And that means that you're going to give up a lot of points in the other areas here of the abilities, like your personality, which is actually very important in this game here. Usually in RPGs, the personality is something that gives you different options when you're speaking to people, but in Divinity, it's very important, and you will be giving up some important stuff here. Same thing with craftsmanship, and again, this is extremely important. The best weapons in this game, or the best equipment, comes from actually crafting it yourself. You can, of course, pick up or be lucky to roll good stuff out in the wild, but in general, crafting or blacksmithing your own stuff will give you the best results in general again. And again, Loremaster and Telekinesis is also very, very useful abilities that you can get around by doing other stuff in the game, but we'll get into that later. And of course, Nasty Deeds. So you can see there's a lot of abilities to put your points into. And if that's not enough, then there's also the actual traits of your character here. And these are the ones that you really have to study. And because you're only going to get the ability to probably choose 4 or 5 of these throughout the whole game. Some of them, don't work with others, and you have to be at a certain level to pick some of them and see how many there are. And if you pick the wrong one, or and not the wrong one, and there's no wrong choices in this game, which is another amazing feat of Divinity. You can play with your head, up your behind, and you'll still be able to finish the game, but you're going to have a very different experience than someone who actually has a really nice build set up and can actually play that build to its strengths. And of course, some people want that, and that's fine. So every ability has a lot of individual abilities here, and there's plenty more than these. These are just the ones that you get access to once you start the game. Once we actually get into the game, which will be in a minute, you can buy these as skill books, or you can pick them up as scrolls, and it just, further enhances the depth of this game, because this is a very deep game. It's an extremely wide game, and it's also extremely deep, much more so than any other role-playing game that I've played. Alright, so I keep saying that Divinity Original Sin is the best role-playing game in the world, and now we're in the actual game here, and as you can see, lots of freedom, not just in building a character that comes pretty much with the game, but also the fact that you can zoom in and out, something that you can't do in Diablo, for example, which allows you to get a whole different perspective on the game. And if we look into the characters here, you'll see that I have, of course, built this character up here. It's not actually a very high level character, this guy here. He's just, I don't know, Mr. Hot Leg here. And it's complicated. It really is. And like I said in the beginning, you really need to know exactly what you're doing. Like, for example, here, I put a lot of points into Expert Marksman, because that's, my build here. And along with my talent points, I am sort of, building this into a kind of a sneaky, ranged marksman here, but it doesn't mean that I have to give up, forego all the fun stuff, because if we look at my skills here, of course I have a few marksman skills, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but this is a relatively young character, so if we just go look at a character that's a little bit more mature, you'll see what we can actually do here. Alright, so here we're looking at a character that's a little bit more advanced than the one I was showing before. And as you can see, we have so many. This is pyrokinetic, which is like a kind of magic, if you will. And if you look at all the different abilities we have here, and this is also not the highest level character there is in the game. And again, Hydro here is all about wind and freezing. No, not wind, water and freezing. There's also plenty of stuff to have fun with here. And again, with the lightning magic here, there's also so much stuff. And teleportation, super important in this game here. It will save you a lot of headache if you put a few points into this, trust me. And Geomancer is the earth magic. Lots of stuff here also, and like I said, we're not even close to end game here. And Witchcraft, I have a few things here, yeah, no bit. And if we look at the character itself, you'll see that again, have to be careful with the points. You see I have 16 in intelligence because this is a magic character, so that makes it it's difficult. Let's just put it like that. So if we look at a different character here, and this more of a ranged character, like of course I have all the marksman skills, or not all the marksman skills, but a lot of them, and a lot of scoundrel skills, which is more like sneaky stuff. So these two characters complement each other really well, because one is more of a sneaky, in-your-face character, and can also do ranged combat, and the other one is focusing on magic and damage from afar. So this is a very good mix, and it's something, again, that you really have to take into account when you play. Alright, so also the biggest positive about this game, and there's a lot of positives about this game. This is an amazing game, and I cannot recommend it enough. But the biggest positive for me is the fact that you can play two players locally without any fuss at all. It's super easy, really. And you can choose to play split screen, or you can choose to play on the same screen like I'm doing here. And it doesn't matter at all. It's just a press of a button, and it's just so easy. So the mechanics in this game are actually very, very advanced, but Larian has just made them so easy to access in the game, and the mechanics is the envy of pretty much any other game out there, because it's just so easy, and like implementing like local co-op on a very, very advanced role-playing game like this in such a smooth way without any bugs or unintended consequences. Yeah, I don't know how Larian did it, but it's a fantastic piece of work, and I can only be in awe of their programmers in there, because I don't know how they did it. So there's a lot of different environments in the game. You will visit everything from, you know, snow-covered mountains like we're doing right here, to swamps and forests, and a whole lot of villages where there's a lot of, you know, NPCs trying to sell you all sorts of things that you can use on your travels. And it really is amazing. I'm still, you know, thinking how they actually managed to pull all this stuff off. And if we look at the map, like, this is just one area in the game, and there's many areas in the game, and this map here is just packed with stuff to explore, and hidden items and fights and everything. And it's just it takes a long time. Like, getting through this map here that I have on the screen now is probably a few days of playing if you're 2 players, and you'll have to return later on in the game when you get like better skills to actually finish off everything here. So I'd say a good week, like playing, and that's just one area in the game. Alright, so just have a look here in the end at the combat in Divinity, because this is obviously the most important part of the game, and it's just executed so well. So the first thing we need to notice here is that this is turn-based combat. This is not like Diablo, where, you know, you're running into a bunch of monsters and pressing the X button over and over and over and then you win. This is a lot more complicated than that, and it's a lot more satisfying as well. So it's all about, you know, setting up traps and, you know, making a little bit of a plan for how you're going to approach each encounter here. For example, we're like facing 2 humans here, and there's probably a few other people down here in the back. Yeah, there is. And you'll have to first figure out what will work well against these enemies here, and how can I, you know, try to actually make this encounter turn out in my favor. So let's try to fire a freezing arrow here, just try to make a little bit of frozen ground here to stop these guys here from maneuvering around too much. So this is something that plays a huge role in this game here. Putting surfaces like this in, you know, strategic areas is very important. And if you don't, you know, fully master that, you're not gonna have a good time in this game here. And there's a lot of different things, and of course I'm using arrows here, but these surfaces can be, you know, done by pretty much anything in the game. And it's quite complicated, I will say that. And not just because you have a lot of surfaces, but of course you have a lot of magic and a lot of melee weapons and ranged weapons, and there's so much that you can do in this game here, and that's why it's so good, right? So for example, if you want to, you know, say, oh, actually we don't want some ice surface there, let's have some oil surface instead. And what this surface here does, which should be pretty obvious, is it slows, you know, the enemies down. And one surface does one thing, another surface does another thing, and then there's the fact that you can mix these things together. So for example, an oil surface like this is kind of begging to be set on fire, right? And that's what you should do. So as you can see, everybody takes their turn in combat, and of course the computer takes its turn as well, and you will have to watch that, or you should watch that, because it will help you out when you get like to your turn. And the turns are also decided on where you put your points, because if you want to start first in every turn, you can do that. You just have to assign your points in such a way that your character is very strong in that area. And that's pretty much, you know, one of the main considerations to make in this game here. And if we have a look here in this game, now it's my other character's turn here, and you can see, for some reason, I don't know why, but it's very nice of them, all of the enemies have decided to stand right here in my little oil puddle here. So you know, setting them on fire should be you know, my one priority. You don't have to hit any of the enemies, just shoot, you know, fire into the oil, and whoop, there you go, and they will take damage over time from that. So there I used my turn, and now it's the enemy's turn, and they are doing something else. And this is how the game works, and every battle in the game is a matter of really thinking, especially if you be playing on the higher difficulties. It gets very difficult then. It's really about planning and, you know, sorting out how you're going to win these certain encounters here, because they can be very, very difficult. And that's the charm of the game. And then, of course, trading and bartering and picking up all sorts of herbs and pickups out here in the wild that you can then, you know, combine into ingredients or new weapons or anything that your heart desires. I mean, that game is so deep. There's so much to do, and you will pretty much never finish. You can finish the game, but even then, there's plenty of stuff to go back to do. So if you haven't played Divinity Original Sin 1 or 2, I highly recommend you give them a shot, especially if you're walking around waiting for Diablo 4 and not knowing what to do. Then this is an excellent time, an excellent game to spend your time on, and I can highly recommend it. It's still my favorite game in the whole wide world, and it's just amazing. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you out there.